Kanye West met with President Trump today. And you know, I always forget that black people are so triggered by Trump in a way that is truly remarkable. Because Trump just doesn't seem like somebody that people, we at least as a people, should be afraid of. But that's beside the point. So Kanye West meets with Donald Trump, and today was a perfect example of how a bunch of people can see the same thing and take a whole bunch of different things away from it. Right? I found that black people overall were disgusted, and this was the last straw for Kanye West. I found conservatives was split in two. You had one section of conservatives who were worried because Kanye West was there and he was cursing in the White House, and that would upset the puritanical conservative base. Another conservatives, they were glad because here's a black man that we can use to get black people on our side. I found that then you have people like myself who really found the entire thing just interesting and agree with a lot of what Kanye West said, which is why today was so fascinating, because I didn't think it was possible to be offended or upset about anything Kanye West did today in his meeting with Donald Trump. Like, really, I didn't know that was possible, but apparently it is. So basically, what I wanted to do was first give my overall impressions of what I saw today, and then, go to some specific parts of the discussion that he had between Trump and Kanye. Jim Brown was there too, by the way, but he didn't talk much. And then, speak about those specific parts and kind of break it down and whatnot, if that makes sense, right? So, overall impression of the discussion, look, man, I thought it was pretty good. Many people saying that Kanye West looked crazy. Kanye West absolutely has a mental illness. You can see his mental illness on display during his discussion with Donald Trump. I just don't think that it's that big of a deal. There are a whole bunch of people who we know historically who have also suffered from mental illness, who pretty much are responsible for some of the greatest contributions to Western civilization that there is. I don't believe that because someone is mentally ill, that means that they can't think for themselves, or that what's coming out of their mouth isn't how they feel. No, that's dismissive, and quite frankly, it's an excuse. Because you don't hear those people who use the mental illness thing to dismiss Kanye bring up the fact that he might have been mentally ill when he said that George Bush doesn't care about black people, or that he was mentally ill when he interrupted Taylor Swift on stage. And the reason why they don't bring it up is because they agreed with him doing those things. So in their minds, he was being like a revolutionary guy. But now that he's supporting Trump and he's saying things that are outside of the left-wing talking dogma, that, his behavior must be that of a mentally ill man. No. He's absolutely mentally ill. 100%. You can see it during the interview. He is mentally ill. I don't know what he suffers from. He said originally that he was diagnosed with bipolar syndrome, but that he saw another doctor who told him that no, he would just suffer from sleep deprivation, which can cause, I have no idea what he has, but he has something. I just don't care, because it doesn't make him any less of a capable man than anybody else. That's my first takeaway. The second takeaway is Kanye West brought up a bunch of issues that black people need to talk about. Okay? He talked about the fact that, and you're going to see this in these individual clips. Matter of fact, I'll say that for when I do the individual clips. But he's talking about a bunch of things that black folks actually need to discuss, and things that we do discuss behind closed doors. But for some reason, him discussing them with Trump sets people off. Which really lets me know that this is less to do about what Kanye is actually saying and more to do with Trump makes people so emotionally sick to their stomach that the idea of Kanye being buddy-buddy with him makes them repulsed. But to me, that's just letting your emotions dictate you as a person, which is never a good look, right? You should never be so emotional that it's hard for you to operate. I just think that's insane. It shouldn't be that way, right? So, overall, it was a good interview. I thought he was a lot clearer in his thoughts. He was a lot clearer in his thoughts than he was during the TMZ thing. Even though, like I said, during the TMZ thing, I can understand what he was trying to say. But I thought he did a better job explaining his thoughts. Even though it's his mind moves like this, right? If I had to guess, Kanye West's regular mind is like this, right? It kind of he can't really calm down. He bounces from wall to wall. When he's excited, as you'll see in his mind moves a little bit faster. And you can see him getting excited. And it's hard for him to come down from that. But like I said, the thoughts and the ideas, I agree with most of them. There's like certain parts that I think I remember where he said certain things that I didn't agree with, and we're going to go ahead and discuss those as well. But let me see if I can find the full. Okay, here we go. So this is one of the parts of Kanye West's one of the interesting parts of the meeting that he had today with Donald Trump.
Yeah, we have Larry Hoover's lawyer with us today, and it's a prisoner that we're focused on. He has 6 life sentences, and they have him next to the Unabomber doing 23 and 1.
What did he do, Larry? What happened? What did he do?
Why is he in?
Yes, tell us this.
Allegedly, it's for conspiracy from prison, from state prison. It's alleged. But we do believe, even if he did commit those crimes, the sentence was overly broad and too
What was the sentence?
6 consecutive life sentences in the most secure prison in the world, also known as a clean version of hell, for basically an economic crime.
What prison is that? Name of the prison?
ADX Supermax in Florence, Colorado. They house Unabomber, Al-Qaeda operatives, mass killers, Oklahoma City bomber, things of that nature.
How old is he? How old?
68.
He's 68 years old?
Yeah, 68 years old.
And really the reason why they imprisoned him is because he started doing positive for the community. He started showing that he actually had power, that he wasn't just one of a monolithic voice, but he could wrap people around. So there's theories that there's infinite amounts of universe and there's alternate universe. So it's very important for me to get Hoover out, because in an alternate universe, I am him. And I have to go and get him free, because he was doing positive inside of Chicago, just like how I'm moving back to Chicago. And it's not just about, getting on stage and being an entertainer and having a monolithic voice that's forced to be a specific party.
I find that part to be very interesting, and that's how the Kanye West version, the Kanye West part starts in this conversation with Trump. So basically, he's speaking about this gentleman. Let me get his name again, Larry Hoover, who is in jail, and Kanye West is saying that the reason why he's being put in jail is because they're saying that he's in jail, for conspiracy from prison. But pretty much Kanye West is saying that he was put in jail because he was pretty much trying to speak to black people in the community and trying to bring about certain changes amongst black people in the community, and that this was that he's pretty much a political prisoner. Now, I have no idea who the gentleman is at all. I'm going to look him up after this video. So I can't tell you whether or not he's actually a political prisoner or not, but I just find that to be super interesting. That Kanye comes in, he basically speaks about the fact that the reason why he's moved to do this is because in an alternate universe, he would be Mr. Hoover. And basically, people got confused during that part. What he was saying is there is an actual theory out there that there are multiple universes, right? So that in this universe, I'm Jabaya, the man doing social commentary on YouTube. In another universe, I could be Jabaya, the basketball player. In another universe, I could be Jabaya, the criminal, right? That there are multiple universes out there, and who we are in this universe is not who we would be in another universe. That's what Kanye was talking about. That's not some crazy lunatic idea. That's an actual scientific belief out there, that there are multiple verses. So, just in case people got thrown off by that part of it, that's what he was talking about. And I find that very interesting. So let's continue.
People expect that if you're black, you have to be Democrat. I've had conversations that basically said that welfare is the reason why a lot of black people end up being Democrat. They say, first of all, it's a limit to amount of jobs. So the fathers lose the jobs, and they say, we'll give you more money for having more kids in your home. And then we got rid of the mental health institutes in the 80s and the 90s, and the prison rates just shot up. And now you have Chirac, what people call Chirac.
I find that interesting. Why? Because, once again, people on the left will say that is 100% not accurate and not true. That the reason why blacks are Democrats is because of the welfare state. And then you have people like Thomas Sowell, Larry Elder. These are both black people who are conservative or libertarian. I think Larry Elder identifies as like a right-wing libertarian, who will tell you that that is 100% the driving force behind why Democrats tend to vote Republican, is because of the welfare state, and it's also responsible for the reason why you have so many single parent households in the black community and fathers not in the home in the black community. So when you hear from these people on Twitter saying that Kanye West doesn't know what he's talking about, this happened, right? So the welfare state is a thing, and causation doesn't mean correlation doesn't mean causation. So who knows what caused the amount of single parent households to spring up after that. But the fact of the matter is that this is scholars debate whether or not this is why black people tend to vote Democratic, or if this was the start of the decline of the black family. So the people who lean left think one way, people who lean right think another way, right? Neither one of them is disputing that this happened, this correlation. They dispute whether or not it was because of the welfare state, right? So Kanye is giving a right-leaning talking point here, which, by the way, doesn't mean that it's true. It doesn't mean that it's not true, because these are theories about what happened to us, right? And he said it, and I'm glad he brought it up, though, because we don't hear most black people speaking about these things, right? It's like we're ashamed of it. We want to pretend like we don't have an issue with, the number of black people who are on government assistance, and it puts us in a weak position, according to people who think like Kanye. I happen to agree with Kanye in this instance, right? So let's go on to what else I find interesting.
I think it's the bravery that helps you beat this game called life. They try to scare me to not wear this hat. My own friends, but this hat, it gives me power in a way. My dad and my mom separated, so I didn't have a lot of male energy in my home. And also, I'm married to a family that, not a lot of male energy going on. It's beautiful, though. But there's times where, it's something about, I love Hillary, I love everyone, right? But the campaign, I'm with her, just didn't make me feel as a guy that didn't get to see my dad all the time, like a guy that could play catch with his son. There was something about when I put this hat on, it made me feel like Superman. You made a Superman. That's my favorite superhero. And you made a Superman cape.
Once again, a fascinating part of this discussion, right? Does the lack of male figures in the home, does it cause boys to thirst for this male energy in anyone who exhibits traits of masculinity? Regardless of how you feel about Trump's policies, if you think he's a white supremacist or whatever, he exhibits masculine characteristics that if you're a boy and you grew up most of your during that adolescent range, when you're becoming a man and you were without that energy, I don't think it is crazy to think that you would yearn for that energy, that there would be a yearning for that. I found that to be 100% fascinating. Like, that should have been one of the leading topics on every news channel. The fact that, is it possible that, this is another, that this is another possible effect of the rising single parent household rates, right? That you have boys who grow up a lot of their years, in their formative years, in households where there's no male energy, like Kanye said, no men in the home. Does it make this thirst, this yearning? And the reason why you should want to know the answer to that question is because that's something that you need to solve as a society. Because if you believe Trump is as problematic as you think, then you should then what you have is a problem of young boys who will take any male energy, even toxic male energy, which perpetuates what we see all the time. It also explains the gang violence. You hear all the time that the boys in these gangs come from homes without fathers. It explains the gang violence. It explains the fact that, boys are falling behind in school, which Kanye touches on as well. It explains so much stuff. Fascinating point by Kanye West. Fascinating point. Let's continue.
Also, as a guy that looks up to you, looks up to Ralph Lauren, looks up to American industry guys, non-political, no bullshit. Put the beep on it, however you want to do it, 5 seconds delay, and just goes in and gets it done. Right now, you gave me the heart to go to Adidas, because at Adidas, when I went in 2015, we were a $14 billion company, losing $2 billion a year. Now we have a $38 billion market cap. It's called the Yeezy effect. And I went to Casper. We had a meeting in Chicago. And I said, you have to bring manufacturing onshore, not even shore, into the core. It's not about the borders, the core of Adidas. And Chicago is the core of Middle America. We have to make Middle America strong. So I had the balls, because I had enough balls to put on this hat. I mean, this Adidas thing made me a billionaire. And I could have lost $200 million walking away from that deal. But even with that, I knew it was more important for me to take the chance of walking away from that deal than to have no fathers in Chicago with no homes. And when we do have prison reformation, because it's habilitation, not rehabilitation, because we didn't have the abilities in the first place. We never had anyone that taught us. We didn't teach us. Exactly, we had no one that taught us, right? So it's more important than any specific deal, anything, that we bring jobs into America, and that we provide a transition with mental health and the American education curriculum that Jim has worked on. Larry Hoover also has a curriculum that he's worked on. We have Montessori curriculums that we worked on. WeWorks has a beautiful curriculum. The Waldorf establishment has a curriculum. We have meditation. There's a lot of things affecting our mental health that makes us do crazy things, that puts us back into that trap door called the 13th Amendment.
This Kanye West ties in the reason why we need factories, jobs in America, right? And even if you say that, look, that's not going to happen. You're not going to get a whole bunch of factories to come back to America, whatever. He's speaking about the need to find labor for people that doesn't require too much college education. That is extremely important. Number one, everyone isn't interested in college. Number two, we have no evidence that suggests that everyone can train themselves for these information jobs. Three, the quickest way to turn around these high crime neighborhoods is to give jobs to young men. Jobs to young men that pay well, that don't require a lot of education, so that the young men feel like they can turn immediately. It's hard for people who are living these reckless lives, these criminal-filled lives. It's hard for them to see decades in advance. It's hard for them to see, like weeks in advance. It's hard for them to see that. They need to know that they can make a transition as quickly as possible. And a factory job where you can use your hands, and you don't have to think much, that you can be trained for, so you don't have to know much, and you can still make a living and support yourself and your family. That will have an effect on bringing down the high crime rate in Chicago. That's what Kanye West is talking about specifically, while also bringing jobs to the country. And also, it ties into the fact that once you have the jobs, then you can start focusing on getting your mental health right. Now you have your job, you got your money, you're out the streets, you're focused on your kids' education. Then we get to focus on, curriculum in schools as well. Right? Because a lot of these kids, they end up, doing things, gang banging and selling drugs because their mental health is not right, right? And people think mental health means mentally ill. That's not true. Your mental health could be, these kids are depressed, right? They grow up in these crime-ridden neighborhoods all the time. They're depressed. They're scared. They're anxious. It could be the fact that some of these kids might have mental illnesses, and because they don't have the money, they can't get diagnosed, which means they can't take pills and medication or even treatment like meditation therapy, things that Kanye West talked about here. And you solve that by implementing those programs back into the schools so that you can help these students before they become criminals. How do you disagree with that point? That is a profound point to make. That all of this ties together. These aren't separate things we're talking about. We're talking about if you fix one, it'll help fix the other, and it's all a domino effect. Nothing crazy or lunatic about that at all.
I I did say abolish with the hat on, because why would you keep something around that's a trap door? If you're building a floor, the Constitution is the base of our industry, right? Of our country, of our company. Would you build a trap door that if you mess up and you accidentally something happens, you fall and you end up next to the Unabomber? You got to remove all that trap door out of the relationship. The four gentlemen that wrote the 13th Amendment, and I think the way the universe works, it's perfect. We don't have 13 floors, do we? You know, so the four gentlemen that wrote the 13th Amendment didn't look like the people they were amending. Also, at that point, it was illegal for blacks to read, or African Americans to read. And so that meant if you actually read the amendment, you get locked up and turned to a slave. Again, so what I think is we don't need sentences, we need pardons. We need to talk to people.
That was one of the most interesting things that I've heard, because it showed exactly why I think mentally ill people actually are very important in society, right? You know, there's multiple people historically that have had mental illness. Da Vinci is one of them. Isaac Newton is one of them. Einstein was one of them. Abraham Lincoln was another one. And the reason why is because people with mental illness, you know, depending on what the mental illness is, I think they actually look at the world different. Like, it's not that they're smarter necessarily than, you know, people who aren't mentally ill or less smart. I think the way like they view the world is different, because this was the first time that I have ever heard anybody describe the Constitution the way Kanye just did, where he talks about it being like a building to him, and like the Constitution is like is the base floor. It's what this whole country is founded on, and each amendment is a floor, right? So you have the Constitution on the bottom, each amendment is a floor, and when you get to the 13th Amendment, which is the 13th floor, there's like a trap door, you know, and the trap door that Kanye is talking about is the part of the, let me see if I can read the, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So what that means is that the Constitution actually only outlaws slavery when it comes to citizens. For criminals, you can absolutely be a slave. And that's what we see happening. A bunch of people in prison for nonviolent crimes who are pretty much slaves, right? They get paid to do work that in the outside world would, you know, somebody will get paid way more than they get paid. They make sense to pave roads and build bridges and make car plates and all that other type of stuff, do wood shop stuff. Pennies, they get paid. So that's taking jobs away from actual, you know, from people out there who are free that can be doing those jobs. And it also pretty much robs these inmates of making any money that they could possibly send to their own family. And it incentivizes free labor. It puts these prisons in, you know, you got private prisons, but also most prisoners aren't in private prisons. But it incentivizes private prisons to keep people in longer, to maybe not focus more on rehab as much as you do labor to get the most bang for your buck. It's a huge problem. So Kanye's saying, why would you amend something like that if you view that second half as a trap door? Get rid of the entire thing and make a new amendment. Because if you found the trap, this is interesting. If you found a trap door in your house, you wouldn't just say, let's remove the trap door. You kind of say, let's renovate the entire floor where we found the trap door, because there could be other traps. Interesting perspective. Now, of course, I don't think anyone's going to abolish the 13th Amendment. I think it's going to be amended eventually one day. But yeah, once again, that was just illustrating how I think his mental illness gives him a different outlook on the world that actually leads to some pretty interesting, thought-provoking things. You know, that's just how I feel about it. Let's see.
What I need Saturday Night Live to improve on, and what I need the liberals to improve on, is if he don't look good, we don't look good. This is our president. He has to be the freshest, the flyest planes, the best factories, and we have to make our core be empowered. We have to bring jobs into America, because our best export is entertainment and ideas. But when we make everything in China and not in America, then we're cheating on our country. And we're putting people in positions to have to do illegal things to end up in the cheapest factory ever, the prison system.
Once again, interesting idea. So basically, Kanye, where I disagree with him is this is one of the critiques where he says that what he needs Saturday Night Live to improve on is if he don't look good, we don't look good. This is our president. I don't think that at all. The president makes themselves look good or bad. The country is its own separate entity, in my opinion. Right? That's how I feel. And I don't think anybody should, curtail their rhetoric or critique of somebody because of how they may be perceived by somebody else. Right? If you have a critique, I think you should give it. If you have an opinion, I believe you should give it. That's just how I feel. So I disagree with Kanye on that. That said, when he says we have to bring jobs to America because our best export is entertainment and ideas, and China is making everything, and because of that, we're cheating the people in this country and forcing them to do illegal things, which ends up back in prison, I agree with that statement. Most of American goods aren't made in America. Look at the back. Look at your labels. It's made in China. It's made in Vietnam. It's made in Japan. It's made in all of these different places, not in America. So right now, I mean, is there anything that America is exporting that is better than the entertainment and ideas we export? I think he's right on that. And I think he's right when he says that by not having jobs, by not having factories and stuff in America, by not making things in America, we put people in positions to make desperate decisions, and desperate decisions usually means criminal activity, which ends up landing them in jail, and it's this cycle again. Once again, so I agree with it. I agree with his point there.
So you had said of President Bush that he doesn't care about black people, and you've heard some people say that about this president. How do you respond to that? What do you make of that?
I think we need to care about all people. And I believe that when I went on to NBC, I was very emotional, and I was programmed to think from a victimized mentality, a welfare mentality. I think that with blacks and African Americans, we really get caught up in the idea of racism over the idea of industry. We say if people don't have land, they settle for brands. We want Polo Sport and Obama again. We want a brand more than we want land because we haven't known how it feels to actually have our own land and have ownership of our own blocks. So when you don't have ownership, then it's all about how something looks. It's about the patina, it's not about the soil, it's not about the core. So we focus more on, is somebody wearing something, does someone disrespect me so I gotta shoot him, or the idea of someone being racist.
So he basically says that when he said what he said about George Bush, that he was speaking emotionally and not from a place of logic and substance. I think we would all agree. Now, that's one of Kanye West's, before all of the Trump stuff, black people used to applaud what he said about George Bush. And they used to applaud him because he was verbalizing what he felt, right? He felt a certain way. He was verbalizing what he felt. And he became kind of like, oh, he's our guy because he said this. But here he's admitting that when he said it, he was being emotional. And he thinks that black people as a whole have a bad habit of getting caught up with the idea of racism, which I agree with. I think a lot of times because we have this victim mentality, we look for racism. So something that might not be racist, a situation that might not be racism, we will inject race into it and make it racist. Agree with him on that. And the part where he goes, because black people don't have land, we settle for brands. That we want Polo Sporting Obama again, because we haven't known how it feels to own something, which is an interesting. So basically, because black people really haven't owned anything, they haven't owned their own land, they haven't owned the house on their blocks. For the most part, we like to rent. Because of that, we like to own people. So when a black dude is a really, he's a upstanding black man, and we think that he's an upstanding member of our community, we like to. It's almost like he becomes part of our own personal family. He's our own personal friend. It happens all the time. Think about it in reverse. When you watch the news and you see a black person commit a crime, you feel bad almost. or when a crime is committed, you think to yourself, please don't be black, please don't be black. Because it's almost like in the black community, one person does represent all of us. We're all kind of connected, like ownership almost. So he's saying that because we don't own anything, we like to own exceptional black people. And Obama was one of those exceptionally black people that we like to own, claim ownership over.
You know, we talk about police murders, which we definitely have to discuss, and we have to bring nobility to the police officers and make the police officers are just like us. But this is this whole hate building, right? And that's a major thing about racial tension. And we also, as black people, we have to take a responsibility for what we're doing. We kill each other more than police officers. And that's not saying that the police officer is not an issue, because they are in a position of power. But sometimes they're in placement of law enforcement. They need to be law power. It's force versus power. When you shouldn't have to force people to do that. So a lot of times a police officer is sitting there, they're being forced to do this and forced to do that block, and then they force somebody into something and force something. We have to release the love throughout the entire country and give opportunities. A lot of times it's just the overall lack of reparations that we, at any given point, we say, oh, this is racist, this is racist, this is racist, this is racist. So we don't have the reparations, but we have the 13th Amendment. We got to open up the whole conversation. So, and that's a move. One of the moves that I love that liberals try to do, the liberal would try to control a black person through the concept of racism, because they know that we are very proud, emotional people. So when I said I like Trump to like someone that's liberal, they'll say, oh, but he's racist. You think racism can control me? Oh, that don't stop me. That's an invisible wall.
So I thought that was interesting. He's speaking about how black, building upon his original point about how black people inject race into certain things, he goes on to speak about the tension between the black community and the police officers, and how we do have to do something about the police officers, but he doesn't necessarily think that police officers are bad, like innately. So he touches on the fact that black people, kill each other more at a higher rate than any other group. He doesn't say that specifically, but that's what goes on. Black on black crime is way, way higher than any other, ethnic group. So it kills me when black people say that, of course, there's black on black crime. More black people live among black people. We're not talking about the fact that black people kill black people. We're talking about the fact that black people kill black people at an enormously higher rate than any other ethnic group. It's not even close. That's the issue. And we're so focused on police brutality that we're not focused on, if your focus is on saving black lives, right? Like you want to save the most black lives possible, then you should want to tackle the thing that's taking the most black lives out of this world. And that's not police officers. It's homicide. Other black men are responsible for taking the majority of black lives out of the neighborhood. That's what's happening, right? And then he goes on to say that even though he brought up black on black crime, he says, I'm not dismissing the police violence. And then he goes on to say that police, though, are put in a position where they have to be violent sometimes, right? Police quotas, which means that you have to make a certain number of arrests. I don't know if it's daily or weekly, but you know what I'm trying to say. That quotas on giving out parking tickets, or number of arrests you make, or citations given, or police officers are put in this position where they almost are encouraged to exact this force, where if they weren't encouraged, they might not do it anyway, right? So there's a culture change that needs to go on with the police officers. That's what he brung up. And also the fact that really what we need to do is speak in a way where love, he says speak in love. I think he just means respect. That, there has to be a way for us to engage in dialogue, community to police, police to community, that isn't disrespectful. It can't be disrespectful. It can't be, outrageous. It can't be none of those things. And right now it is. And it's hard for anything to get done because neither side wants to speak. The community is telling police officers how they should police when they have no idea what it's like to police, and then you have the police officers telling the community how they should feel about policing when they aren't policed by the police in a neighborhood. And if we all just took some time, take a breath, and not assume the worst on the other side, then we might be able to get somewhere. Then he goes on to speak about, this was dope, ADD in school, right? This had nothing to do with what he was speaking about before, but he speaks about how
Sometimes people say, this kid has ADD, this kid has ADD. He don't have ADD, school is boring. It was boring, it's not as exciting as this. We have to make it more exciting, we have to mix curriculums. You play basketball while you're doing math. You learn about music while you meditate in the morning. We have to instate mental health and art programs back into the city. So those are, and also Larry Hoover is an example of a man that was turning his life around. And as soon as he tried to turn his life around, they hit him with 6 life sentences. So I believe you say don't tear down the statues. Larry Hoover is a living statue. He's a beacon for us that needs to see his family, that needs to go out and represent. When you have a block leader on every single block, they can own the block as their own. That's something I learned from Jim Brown, from A Mayor I Can. We need to put curriculums from people who really came from the streets, not people who are just trying to set us up to go into a work system or prison system that applies to what people are really going through, which Jim Brown has created.
people have been saying this for a long time. I've heard numerous discussions amongst teachers online about how schools need to change, and particularly when discussing boys falling behind in school, because that's the real issue here. That so many young boys are falling behind in schools because they just can't seem to stay interested in school, right? You have the number of males entering college going down. The gender gap, amongst freshmen entering is growing, and it's only going to keep growing because boys aren't interested in school. And it starts young. They get disinterested in school because they're not interested. They start acting up and talking. They end up getting sent to some psychiatrist person that ends up saying that, oh, you know what, he can't focus, he has ADD, put him on pills, mess him up for life. All because the school ain't interested. It's not male friendly. And he's right. You have to make it interesting for the kids. The easy fix is to put them all on pills. The long-term effective thing to do is let's analyze why it seems like boys of all races just aren't interested in school like that. Interesting point.
Let's stop worrying about the future. All we really have is today. We just have today, over and over and over again, the eternal return, the hero's journey. And Trump is on his hero's journey right now. And he might not have expected to have a crazy motherfucker like Kanye West run up and support. But best believe, we are going to make America great. Now the thing is, another thing is black people have an issue with the word again. And I believe my feeling from that is because I'm going to go all the way Sigmund with it, because time is a minute. All we have is now, all we have is today. So the word again, it doesn't hurt us because of the idea of racism and slavery and different things. It hurts us because we need to focus on who we are now, today, I believe. So I actually brought some hats in that have a bit of a transition. I'm not trying to put you up there, spot a little bit. I made a hat that says Make America Great, just that. But I would love to see, at the Super Bowl, Trump wearing the Make America Great hat, Colin wearing the Make America Great, and showing that we can bend a bit on this side, we can bend a bit on this side, and we can learn how to be malleable in the infinite universe that we are and the loving beings that we are. That we don't have to stick to all traditions. And we aren't a side. We are one unit. We are one country. We are one moment in history and time. We might have been here before, but right now, we're here together, and the greatest value that people have are other people. And we need to stop working on red and blue. It's like a gang again.
So in this part, Kanye speaks about the fact that he thinks black people focus too much on history to the point where it's detrimental to us. I agree. You can focus on history too much, especially if you get consumed by it. Yes, our ancestors, if you're African American, were slaves. Yes, our ancestors went through Jim Crow. Yes, we had a hard time in America. But what does that have to do with us right now? Nothing. Right now, even if you're born in a messed up situation, for the most part, you have good enough tools to get you out. And those of us that are in, middle class, upper middle class positions as African Americans, we definitely have the tools to make life easier for those that aren't in those good conditions. So I think he was speaking to how, too often black people, the past is like shackles for us. And this is also a point he made on TMZ, by the way. Then he goes on to say he wants Trump and Colin wear a hat, pretty much speaking about how he's trying to bring people out of their teams, their tribes, because that's the biggest issue that I think facing us now. George Washington said that. I think in his farewell address to stay away from the two political parties, that it wasn't that nothing good would come from it. Now, of course, at that time period, it wasn't Democrats and Republicans. I think they were called like Whigs, something like that. But the team thing, and I keep telling you guys right now, there's no incentive for people for these news media companies to tell the truth or give you disinformation. The money is in the division. The money is in keeping people at each other's throats. That's where the money is at. To assume that the other side is the enemy, so we go to our separate camps and watch our separate news and tweet to our separate little bubbles to fight, right? Then the news companies, they get the ads, which keeps the eyes on the screen over and over again. Both sides play this game. Both sides play this game. So he's trying to get people out of their camps. And when he says it's like the gang thing, red and blue, red Republicans, blue Democrats, he's speaking about the Crips and the Bloods. The fact that you have people who would hate each other just because they were another color. Flag color. Red flag, blue flag. You are the enemy because I am blood and you are Crip. Now we have to get down. I have to kill you. And it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't. And and a lot of these leaders and people in these political parties, they don't want to change it because they get what they want, which is power to be in these positions by the division. That's what they want. They don't want people to let air out of the balloon and bring things down. The problem with that, though, is this country will tear itself apart before they realize that they've gone too far. Because everyone thinks that they got under control. They don't. Yeah. So that was, and then, he goes, then it's like a couple of minutes after that, but they just pretty much wrap up the interview. So, dude, I thought it was great. I really enjoyed this interview. Not interview, it wasn't an interview. I thought the discussion between Kanye West and Donald Trump was productive. Right? And I'm glad it was aired. I didn't mind the cursing. It felt like a real conversation going on between the president and Kanye West. I know Jim Brown was probably shocked a little bit when Kanye West was cursing and whatnot, but I enjoyed it. I liked it because Kanye West is trying to do something, and he's trying to change people's minds. He's trying to get people out of their tribes. He's trying to get black people out of, from constantly thinking that everything is racist, to let the change go. If I had to sum up what Kanye West is, what his goal is, it's to get rid of the chains. Get rid of the chains, let it go, and let's, move forward. And I can applaud anybody that has that message because it's costing him right now. And he seems to not care about the cost because he believes in the righteousness in what he's doing. And I can respect anybody for that. So salute to you, Ye. Comment down below. Tell me your thoughts. Agree, disagree. I would love to hear, what you think. Till next time.